Here's CONCACAF. In the first round, you have the four worst teams playing against each other for two legs. Two winners progress to the next round. And in the next round, there are 6 groups of 5 teams. The top 2 teams progress to the next round, where 12 teams will be divided into 3 groups of 4. The group winners automatically qualify for the World Cup, while the 2 best second-place teams qualify for the Intercontinental Playoffs, with 2 teams from Asia and Africa. Due to the US, Mexico, and Canada not being in this qualifying, this will be the weirdest qualifying yet. The nations that qualify will most likely be wildcard nations. Now let's review the 4 teams. All 4 teams have never qualified for the World Cup, obviously, and none have qualified for a single international competition. Anguilla have never made it past the first round, but last qualifying round they couldn't even score a goal and finished rock bottom. Turks and Caicos never qualified for the second round, but at least they got a win, coming against St. Lucia, but they bottled their lead in the second leg. In 2022, they finished last as well without a single goal. Unlike the other teams, the US Virgin Islands have made it to the second round, winning in the first Virgin Derby. They then went on to lose every game in the second round, but hey, progress. British Virgin Islands almost qualified for the second round in 2010, but lost out on away goals to the Bahamas. In 2022 qualifying, they also finished last with 0 goals. Anguilla and Turks and Caicos played and couldn't be separated in the first leg, but in the second leg there was more action, as Turks and Caicos took the lead before Anguilla equalized, and they went to penalties. And you're crazy if you think I'm going over any of this. Just to summarize, someone named Kean Duncan sent Anguilla to the second round for the first time ever, and this is a huge step, as before this, they were the second worst team in FIFA rankings. Milano away to the Virgin Derby was next, and Balaška gave the US Virgins the lead, and the British Virgins scored in the 90th minute to keep their hopes alive. Also, I forgot to mention, but there is no away goals rule in this. Anyways, the second leg played in a goalless draw, so they went to penalties, and a guy named Azardi Cowwood, who doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, mind you, sent the British Virgins to the next round. Now, in the second round, in Group A, we have Honduras, Antigua and Barbuda, Cuba, Bermuda, and the Cayman Islands. Honduras, where I'm from, have qualified for 3 World Cups, and we haven't gotten out of the groups, but came so close in 1982 and got robbed. After narrowly missing out in 2018, we then couldn't even get a single win in our qualification campaign in 2022. We also won the Gold Cup a year prior during our best period, but couldn't get out of the groups in the most recent edition. Antigua and Barbuda have 0 appearances in the World Cup or Gold Cup, but they did make it to the third round in 2014 qualifying, but couldn't win a single game in their group. In 2022 qualifying, they finished behind Montserrat of all teams in third, and were 3 points away from El Salvador. Cuba qualified once in 1938 after all the other teams withdrew, and beat Romania to make it to the quarterfinals, where they got blasted by Sweden 8-0. They haven't got even close since then, and finished third behind Guatemala and Curacao in 2022. In the Gold Cup, their best result was a 4th place finish in 1971. Bermuda are more known for their infamous triangle than their football. They have only 1 measly appearance on the Gold Cup in 2019 when they crashed out of the groups. In 2014, they finished 3rd in the second round group, which is their best qualifying run. 2022 saw them finish 3rd, somehow drawing against Cayman Islands. Speaking of them, the Cayman Islands have 1 appearance in the second round, where they finished last in their group with 1 point and haven't gotten a single win ever in qualifying, and obviously have 0 international tournament appearances. As previously mentioned, in 2022 they got a point from Bermuda and actually scored goals, unlike some other teams, but still finished last. Group B includes Costa Rica, my favorite nation, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Kitts and Nevis, Grenada, and Bahamas. In 2014, Costa Rica topped the group of death and barely lost to Netherlands on penalties in one of the biggest underdog stories. Now though, Keylor Navas is retired, and so are other stars. Last World Cup they finished last, but they did keep things interesting, winning against Japan and almost giving us greatness. They have 3 titles in the Gold Cup in 1963, 1969, and 1989, but they haven't been able to escape the quarterfinals in the past 3 editions. Trinidad and Tobago qualified for the World Cup in 2006. It got a historic draw against Sweden, but then couldn't score a single goal for the rest of the tournament. In 2018 qualifying, they had their most famous win, beating the US 2-1, and now I hope every Trinidadian on the pitch that day goes to the fiery pits of hell. Anyways, after 2018, in 2022 they finished second behind St. Kitts and Nevis. You really couldn't have been that bad when we faced each other, huh? St. Kitts and Nevis have been improving and recently qualified for the Gold Cup in 2023 for the first time ever, but couldn't get out of the groups. St. Kitts and Nevis' best result in qualifying saw them make it to the third round, where they finished last in their group. Last qualifying run they finished though ahead of Trinidad as previously mentioned. Grenada actually have done something, qualifying for the Gold Cup 3 times but crashing out the groups all 3 times. In 2018 they made the third round for the first time ever and then lost to Haiti twice. They followed that up by finishing third, only beating the US Virgin Islands. Bahamas have never qualified for any tournament and the farthest they have gone in qualifying is the second round twice in 2002 and 2010, where they both got annihilated by Haiti and Jamaica respectively. Group C has Haiti, Curacao, St. Lucia, Barbados, and Aruba. So we are seeing a derby down in the Southern Caribbean. Haiti qualified for one World Cup back in 1974 and crashed out of the groups, but to be fair, they were with Italy, Argentina, and Poland's golden generation. They were dominant in CONCACAF back then as well, winning the Gold Cup in 1973. Nowadays though, Haiti are even lucky to qualify for the final round, as they haven't been to the final round since 1982. They could have made it to the final round in 2022, but they had their own version of Luis Carrius. Curacao have 2 appearances in the final round, but have never finished above last in 1974 and 1962. They haven't been back since, but came so close in 2022 but heartbreakingly lost to Panama. They also made it to the quarterfinals in their second Gold Cup appearance, but haven't been back to the tournament since. St. Lucia have 0 appearances in any tournament, and in fact, they withdrew from the last qualifying round. They have made it to the second round every time since 2006 until 2022, but haven't gone past that point. Barbados also have 0 tournaments, but at least they made the 4th round back in 2006, where they finished rock bottom. In 2022 qualifying, they could only finish 3rd in their group behind the Dominican Republic. I don't know how Aruba are the worst team in this group by ranking, but they have 0 tournament appearances, but they aren't that bad and made it to the 3rd round in 2018 qualifying, although they did get some help from FIFA after a player for Barbados didn't serve his suspension. That was their best performance, and they finished 4th, but hey, at least they weren't last. In Group D, we have Panama, Nicaragua, Guyana, Montserrat, and Belize. Panama back in 2018 stole the USA spot in the World Cup, with Roman Torres scoring the goal to take them to the World Cup. Last campaign they came so close to the Intercontinental Playoffs, but bottled in their final window. They have never won the Gold Cup, but have 3 appearances in the final in 2005, 2013, and in the most recent one in 2023. And an even bigger morale boost going into these qualifiers is that they recently beat the USA in the Copa America. Nicaragua have never qualified for the World Cup, but did make it to a Gold Cup when it consisted of 1 group where they finished last. They haven't made it out of the group since then though, and haven't qualified since 2019. They almost made it to the 4th round in 2018 after having an away lead over Jamaica going into the second leg at home, but choked it and heartbreakingly lost. They almost made it to the second round in 2022, but a 1-0 loss to Haiti sealed their fate. Guyana's best performance goes to 2014 when they topped the group ahead of Trinidad yet again, but then lost all their games in the 3rd round. It hasn't been getting better, with 2022 seeing them finishing 4th behind Puerto Rico. They have actually appeared in a Gold Cup, making their debut in 2019 and crashed out of the groups. Montserrat's best campaign was the last one where they finished undefeated, getting a point from El Salvador, and just missed out on the next round after picking up 1 extra draw. They still haven't been able to escape the 1st round. They have also never qualified for a major tournament. Belize in 2014 got close to reaching the 2nd round, but by close, I mean 11 points away, finishing in second after Dion McCauley absolutely carried them, finishing as the joint top goal scorer in qualifying along with Luis Suarez and Robin Van Persie. However, they finally did make the third round in 2018, then had to face Canada and got beaten 4-1. Group E is probably the best group, with Jamaica, Guatemala, and Dominican Republic all standing a chance, as the Dominicans have been on the rise, especially now that Junior Firpo plays for them. This group has Dominica and the British Virgins from the previous round, so we will be seeing a Dominican derby. But anyways, Jamaica have one appearance in the World Cup back in 1998 where they got one win against Japan but nothing else. The Reggae Boys have also made it to the final of the Gold Cup twice where they lost both times. Guatemala have never qualified for a World Cup. They finished 4th once during the final round in 1990 qualifying, but their closest chance came in 2006 when they had to beat Costa Rica on the final day and see a Trinidad loss to Mexico. Guatemala got the hard part out of the way, but unfortunately for them, the football gods hate Guatemala and Trinidad somehow won. It's pretty evident though that the football gods hate them because they have come so short so many times of making the final round and miss out by 1 point or on goal difference. Speaking of, in 2022 qualifying, they missed out on goals scored and didn't concede a single goal. They also won the Gold Cup back in 1967 and made it to the quarterfinals in the most recent edition. Guatemala are like that permanent dark horse of CONCACAF, at least that's what it feels like to me. Maybe then they will finally qualify for the first ever World Cup. Dominican Republic, as I previously stated, have been on the rise, and also Mariano Diaz could have played for the Dominicans but wanted to play for Spain instead. He hasn't gotten a call up to this day. Anyways, the Dominican Republicans have never made it past the second round, and they have been stuck in this endless cycle for so long. Also in 2022, Dominica was in their group when they finished second. They also have 0 appearances in the Gold Cup and World Cup. Speaking of, Dominica have made only the second round 3 times and have gotten annihilated every time. They have never qualified for any tournament as well. And finally, Group F, we have El Salvador, Suriname, Puerto Rico, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Anguilla from the first round. El Salvador qualified for the World Cup in 1970 and 1982. Boy, have I been waiting to make fun of you guys. They have the biggest defeat in the World Cup, 10-1 against Hungary. They have never won the Gold Cup also, unlike the Hungarians, and their best attempt came in 1963 and 1981 when they were runners-up. Suriname have made it to the Gold Cup before when it was also joint qualification for the World Cup and finished in 6th. That to date is still their best appearance at the Gold Cup and in World Cup qualifying. Puerto Rico, the 51st state of the USA, have never made it to any tournament. They have also never made it past the second round, but in 2014 they finished second in their group. 2018 they could have made it, but they bobbled against Grenada. In their most recent campaign, however, they were just 2 points away from first in 2022 qualifying. St. Vincent and the Grenadines are way better than people think, as they have made it to the second to last round every time from 1994 to 2006, as well as 2018, and in 2006 they had their best finish in 3rd. They have declined, however, after finishing 4th behind Cuba in 2022 qualifying. Honduras got shocked early on by Cuba, but then came back immediately with goals from Lozada, Rodriguez, and Castillo. Then they destroyed Bermuda 6-1. The Cayman Islands obtained their first ever win in qualifying after a shocking 90th minute winner against Antigua and Barbuda. The bottling doesn't end for Antigua as they had the lead, but then choked in the 90th minute as well against Bermuda. The Cayman Islands, though, couldn't replicate their results due to visa issues with the USA's strict policies on going to Cuba, and Cuba were awarded a 3-0 win. This leaves Honduras with 6 of 6 points, and that makes me happy because we actually aren't losing for once. Cuba, after their win, are hanging on in second, but Cayman Islands would surprisingly be in second if it wasn't for their visa issues. Antigua and Barbuda have turned into the CONCACAF version of Spurs and are joint bottom with Bermuda Triangle FC. Costa Rica is off to an expected start with 2 wins over St. Kitts and Nevis and Grenada. Someone from Grenada named Miles Hippolyte scored 2 goals against Trinidad before they had to rally back, thanks to Ryan Tefler and Leon Moore. Trinidad redeemed themselves though with a 7-1 demolishment of the Bahamas. St. Kitts and Nevis are still in the race after a narrow win in the Bahamas. This means Costa Rica have 6 out of 6 points, while Trinidad, the bottle jobs, with 4 points after their terrible performance over Grenada. St. Kitts and Nevis are just hanging in there after that narrow win, and so are Grenada with the 1 point they have after a near shock against Trinidad. Curacao are off to a good start with 2 wins, 4-1 over Barbados and a narrow 2-0 win in the derby over Aruba with goals from Bacuna and an injury time from Severina. Haiti, despite falling behind against St. Lucia, came back through Duverne and Nazon. They did keep it narrow as well against Barbados, but it is enough to stay in the top 2. After St. Lucia's impressive performance against Haiti, they proceeded to concede 2 goals to Aruba, but then they came back from behind to secure an important point. This means Haiti and Curacao are basically through already, with Aruba, St. Lucia, and Barbados fighting to see who can finish with the least amount of points. Nicaragua are top after putting 4 past Montserrat and Belize. Panama are right behind them with a 2-0 win against Guyana, the goal scored by Martinez and Rodriguez. They then played Montserrat and then took the lead before Montserrat somehow equalized, but Panama finally woke up and scored 2 of their own. Guyana's 3-1 win over Belize was not that narrow as they won in dominating fashion. Nicaragua and Panama are both top, with Guyana breathing down their necks, while Montserrat and Belize both haven't won a single game. In Group E, Guatemala obtained dominant wins over Dominica and the British Virgin Islands. Nicholson helped Jamaica win over the Dominican Republic and scored a brace over Dominica, with Ditson as well scoring a goal, but Dominica did rally back with 2 goals of their own. Dominican Republic got a 4-0 win over the British Virgins, which keeps their hopes alive. Jamaica and Guatemala are top, but don't count out the Dominican Republic, as they barely lost to Jamaica. That's not the same for Dominica and the British Virgins, as they both have 0 points. Suriname put 4 past St. Vincent and Anguilla, while Puerto Rico pulled off an impressive draw in El Salvador and made Anguillans more depressed than me during 2022 qualifying. El Salvador scored early on versus St. Vincent, but El Salvador, being El Salvador, conceded an equalizer. Sadly for me, they scored 2 goals and I can't make fun of them for another draw. But I can make fun of them for not being in the top 2, unlike Honduras. While Suriname are first, and Puerto Rico will be happy with their result, as they got a crucial point against El Salvador, and St. Vincent and the Grenadians, you may be more miserable after bottling twice, but at least you have 2 goals. And in Greenlands, you may be more depressed than Maxwell watching Vietnam play, but remember, you should be grateful that you're even in this round.